professor at National Chengchi University in Taipei. This is correct me the name is correct, Graduate Institute of Religious Studies.
Yeah, Graduate Institute.
Which is there's no undergraduate studies there, but it's all like people doing MA and PhD in various religions. So Dr. Hsieh is an expert in both Buddhism and Daoism. How many books have you published now? Probably
so far it's
just 3. But all. But visual culture, Daoist writing, historical Daoism, contemporary Daoism. And he's working with our center now on interviewing a lot of Daoists in China. So that's what we'll talk about today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to be here, and then it's very good to be here to present this topic because that's the project I'm working on right now for these centers. And so the project I'm working on right now is Daoism and its social life in China, an oral history of Daoism from 1949 to 2015. And this project we plan to do an interview and to conduct a 50 oral history interview with the Daoist masters, or what I call a renunciate Daoist monk or household Daoist. Oh, okay, both. And as well as the 50 interviews with Daoist followers or lay people. So we have conducted fieldwork and interview in the 17 locations of FUJIAN, Jiangxi, and so on, and also different provinces, including far away from Shanxi, Shandong, or Guizhou, Guangdong, Sichuan, and Gansu, and so on, and the 2 big cities, Shanghai and Beijing. And so based on these sources, so far we are still collecting the result or the report. And based on this report, I'm gonna work on a book, and it's based on this project. So I have finished the first 2 chapters. Based on the first one is methodology, and then the second one is about the historical background. And the 3rd and the 5th chapter is the most challenging because I still have to wait for all of the result and the report to reconstruct the revival of a local Daoist ritual practice, and as well as how they rebuilt the Daoist temple in contemporary. So that's and this chapter 6 is talking about the lay people practice. It's most of the cultivation and Yangshen practice. And chapter 7 is about the young people Daoism. It's about how young people approach Daoism and through the internet, and how young people identify themselves as Daoism. And chapter 8 is about the Daoism and globalization, just talking about how the Daoism spread to the overseas, Europe and American, and what's the role of the government play in this process. Especially they have a 一带一路 policy, and they try to use Daoism as a tool. That's chapter 8. So today I'm going to talk about chapter 4. That is based on the certain report, and then we have do a lot of research on the manuscript as a project as well. And then we have a AAR panel last year in the San Antonio talking about the manuscript as a tradition. So the manuscript itself is a very special category, so that especially in the religion traditions, that's a writing of a sacred text, and as they are preserved in the cultural transmission through the handwritten scriptures or manuscript. Even after the printing technology is very well developed in China, and still the Buddhism and Daoism, they keep the handwritten tradition. So the handwritten manuscripts are very vital. It's very crucial in the Daoist tradition. So in my research, I take the Daoism as a loose category. It's including all different kind of traditions, and all under the umbrella of so-called Daoism. But it's actually a variety of different traditions, including the cultivation tradition, spirit medium, and lay people's traditions. So it's not a unified tradition, or they don't have any. So every tradition, they have their own, produce their own kind of text, scripture, manuscripts, and writing as well. So today I want to focus only on two different traditions. This is local household Daoist and the local house ritual master, these two traditions. And this is so-called Dao and Fa, two different types of ritual expertise. You can say that in the most place of China village. So how to distinguish Dao and Fa? I think the one way we can think about it is one is more literary and one is more martial. That's some people divide it into Wen and Wu tradition. But anyway, these two, they sometimes work together and then sometimes they compete in each other. So this is very crucial two tradition in Chinese Daoism. And so I would like to talk about this tradition and their manuscripts, especially under the scope of religion revival. So manuscripts are very important for the study of evolution and propaganda of Daoism from the Ming to Qing and to contemporary. The importance of Daoist ritual manuscript in the Chinese religious life is played a very crucial part. So we will talk about that today. And the Daoists I want to mention or emphasize here is household Daoists. They are not renunciate. They are actually people living in a village, and when they have a ritual, they will become a Daoist and then play a role in the provide a ritual service in the local communities. And they heavily rely on their manuscripts. So they have to have manuscript to perform a ritual. If they don't have manuscript, they can only perform some kind of technique, exorcism, or kind of fa shu ritual, but not the Daoist ritual. Okay. So a local Daoist, they can provide all different kind of ritual, including the public jiao ritual, which is very big for the local temple or higher, city guard temple as well. And also they can provide a personal healing, just for personal, you can imagine before the 20th centuries, there is no hospital in the village. So people all rely on Daoists to do all kind of different ritual for the healing and medicine. And funeral rituals and exorcism. So funeral ritual will provide for the whole family. So you can see that the role of a Daoist plays a very crucial part in the daily life. Also, we can see that from Ming Dynasty on, they have a very complex networks of from a local temple to the city guard to the eastern mountain. It's called Dongyue Miao. That's the Ming Dynasty. They set up all of the Dongyue Miao in every place, and the highest hierarchy, or you can see this bureaucracy system, a temple system. And the highest is the temple of the Jade Emperor or the perfect warrior, Zhenwu, especially in the Ming Dynasty. So you can see that the household Daoists, they provide a ritual frameworks or a ritual service for the local temple and allow people to do their ritual in the local temple and then in the city guard and then its mountain. So that is totally, you can see that's a whole network in the whole countries. And Kenneth Steen argued that this is the Chinese second government through a religion and temple system. So I would like to borrow a theory about to think about how can we study or think about the manuscript in the local system or this kind of local networks. So I use a theory called situated knowledge. It's emphasize that the specific setting by the human being with the dynamic yet socially conditioned perspective and reflect the particular conditions in which they are produced and the social identity and the social location of the knowledge producers, embedding a certain language, culture, or traditions. In other words, it's a construct to the universal knowledge. Scholars try to provide a universal knowledge, a model or a theory to cover all different kind of phenomena. But situated knowledge, they argue that it is impossible to provide a universal model to explain everything. Instead, you can provide a situated knowledge. Every place, every time, in a certain time and place, they have a certain kind of knowledge under the context, and they all different. So you can see the manuscript. If you see the manuscript, you'll find out that it's the manuscript. They provide a lot of local information and local knowledge, and that is not universal. So compare the household Daoist manuscript and the Daoist canon. You will see Daoist canon, they try to provide a universal cosmology or pantheon or the Daoist ideally model of the Daoist idea. So that's the Daoist canon. It usually edited by the court or the elite Daoist. So they try to provide ideally Daoism. But if you see the local household Daoist manuscript, you'll see a lot of elements. It's about the, you can say it's superstitions or local knowledge and a local kind of method or local, it's very under the specific culture, language, time, space, and so on. So it provides a lot of information for us to understand the Chinese culture. So also, I would like to suggest and talk about some features of a household Daoist manuscript in the southern China. So this is a certain kind of feature I would want to emphasize. First one is ritual. The ritual, even in our official Daoist canon, like for example the Zhentong Daozang in Ming Dynasty, still using in today. That's almost 18% of the Zhentong Daozang is about ritual. So you can see the ritual play a very crucial role in Daoism. And most of the manuscript, they provide a process and the function of a ritual and how the ritual perform and the superior co-construct the knowledge and build up their own connection and identity of the communities. So they rely on the ritual manuscript to perform their ritual. So that's the second one is lineage. So household Daoism, most of them are under a unit of a family, under the family. So they organize on the principle of a family structure. So the transmitted Daoist knowledge under this family, or including their skill of ritual performance and in a linear fashion. So usually the transmission of the knowledge of a manuscript only to the one descendant in each generation. The purpose of that is that they don't want it to transmit to two sons, so they were competing each other. The market is so small. So if you have 2 or 3, then they were competing to each other. So usually they only provide to the one generation for 1 and 1. So it's a kind of a linear. But it depends. Every village, every place have a different fashion or different kind of way to do that. But this is more, most of cases like this. And also the manuscript is a private and a secret. So they pass along in the family and from the master to disciple, is father to sons relationships, and highlights one central fact about the private transmission of manuscript. In other words, it's not public. And if you go to the village to talk with most of Daoists, they will find out they will keep their family manuscript as well-guarded secret. They will not show you, and not even to take a picture of that. It's impossible. But in early time, they are not know very much about this. So a lot of Western Daoist scholars, they're able to copy a lot of manuscript. But recently, the people more and more aware this is a kind of their secret knowledge. So also, the manuscript also rely heavily on the oral instruction. In other words, every manuscript that include a series of oral instruction from generation to generation. So not include in the ritual manuscript. So this, for example, you can see this one, this is a talisman. And it shows you how to write this talisman. First of all, you have to write a circle and a dot. And then in the following, they will tell you what kind of incantation you have to chant during this. And also, you have to meditate. But that meditate and incantation, they will not show up in the manuscript. You have to rely on the oral instruction. So the manuscript is only complete in the conjunction with the oral instruction. So people who steal the manuscript, they were not able to perform the ritual because they don't have oral instructions. And also the manuscript, they preserve a lot of local tradition or local knowledge. So Daoist priests serve crucial to the mental, physical, spiritual, and the social health of the local individual, household, and communities. And also accumulate various local knowledge in order to fit the terms of a scale between the priest and their client. And the manuscripts present a literature designed for the specific local context and interest. So we also find out a lot of manuscripts preserve a lot of local knowledge. For example, I just studied a manuscript is in the Hubei area, and it preserved 200 water gods in the whole Changjiang, middle Yangtze River area. So they have temples, location, and water gods. So according to that manuscript, we can reconstruct the whole water gods in the whole area. Also, the Canistine mentioned one manuscript that it provides 200 of God's birthday in the whole county. So most of the temples were destroyed in the Cultural Revolution. So through the manuscript, we can reconstruct a lot of local knowledge or temple knowledge and temple information. And also the manuscript is very important for the Daoist education. So copy this text, master in the calligraphies, and reciting and memorize this text. It serves a kind of initiation for the disciples and constitute a part of what it means to become a Daoist. In other words, to become a Daoist, you have to memorize all of the text through the writing and copy all different kind of text. And also, it's an extraordinary window into how sacred knowledge is disseminated, alert, and reformulated through the handwritten transmission. So just briefly, we can contrast or compare the Daoist manuscript and the Buddhist manuscript to see how unique the Daoist manuscript it is. So first of all, the Daoist manuscript is all about ritual, and Buddhist manuscript, according to the Dunhuang manuscript, you can see most of that is sutra. That's Buddha's speak or Buddha's kind of teaching. And also the Daoist manuscript is most of the lineage and family, but Buddhist manuscripts are about a master disciple or lay people. And Daoist manuscript is private, but Buddhist is public. And Daoist is more rely on the oral instruction, and Buddhist more rely on the Dharma teaching. And Daoist is focus in local tradition, but Buddhist not. And Daoist manuscript is more a way of a Daoist education, but Buddhist manuscripts emphasize merit. So if you copy the text, you get a merit, but that's not the case in Daoism. Also, we mentioned the Daoist canon. Actually, how the Daoist canon constructs throughout the Chinese history, they are actually collecting all different kind of manuscripts. And according to the court and elite, they can rewrite that and reformulate that. So the canon is, the Daoist canon is kind of presenting a local ritual manuscript as an integral part of the state Daoism. Also, when the text was included in the Daoist canon, it symbolized the core value of the text. And the process of standardization also erased untold number of texts for various of reasons. And For the Daoist manuscript, we can also see that a very rich ritual manuscript and the materials come from the fieldworks and the antiquity market, the free market or the antique market today. So a lot of scholars, they start to gather in, to collect in all of the different kind of manuscript today. That a lot of famous scholars, Christian Shippers, John Lagaway, Wang Qiugui, and Li Fengmao, and Kong Linghong is the one who in Zhejiang University now is holding a project to collecting the Dongfang Daozhang, the East Daoist canon, which is very famous. It's very, a lot of people criticize that because he used money to buy the manuscript from the Daoists. So that's a lot of people criticize that. So it's create a lot of problem right now.
So what other people do? How do they collect?
Can him or?
No, the others.
Oh, they are they for example the shipper, he did the fieldworks in the 60s, so it's very easy to to borrow in the copy or exchange the copy of the Daoist scholar. And John Lagaway, he went to a lot of different provinces to collect in all different kind of sources. And Li Fengmao, most of his text is bought from the market, in the market, in the antique market. And the dealer, there are certain dealer in Hong Kong, they can collect in all of the manuscript in the 1980s and 1990s, and you can buy a whole bunch of the text from Hong Kong, from Taiwan. So the most important one is the project, which is now conducted by the Chinese Religious Affairs Department, and that's began in December. And last year, 2016, already officially approved by the government, and is want to compile the new Daoist canon. It's called Zhonghua Xu Daozhang. This is a kind of official project. It's very huge and a lot of money there. So scholars start to collect in various manuscripts from southern or different provinces, try to participate this this project. So if you check out the website of the Daoist Association, 中国道教协会, right now you will see a framework is called a calling paper or calling manuscript of 中华续道藏. So it's kind of asking people to donate a manuscript for this project. The one I participate is Daofa Haihan. This project is Professor Li Fengmao. He has over 10,000 manuscripts from the flying market or antique market, and we are editing this text for him, and we use we recategorize that under new frameworks. So this is every new canon, they have facing the problem how to recategorize all of this text. So finally, I would like to talk a little bit about based on our oral history interview, we find out the manuscript is played a very crucial role. So we'll briefly talking about that. So over a century in the household, Daoists, they have the art of storing and hiding their ritual manuscript. And many of the household Daoist manuscripts were destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. But the problem is how they recover that, how they recollecting all of these manuscripts. If they don't do that, they were not able to perform a ritual again. Their lineage will cut off in this moment. So what we're interested in is that how they recover that. So during the 70s and 80s, many households replenished any lost ritual manuscript by, a lot of people by memorizing, they're based on their remember to recollecting their manuscript or borrowing or copy from other Daoists. So they recreate or recollect their library, you can say that. So first case, we are focusing on the, first of all, I also want to mention two books. The first one just published, this published in 2016, is recovering the Buddhism in modern China. And in the contemporary chapter, the two is talking about it. One is talking about text, and the one is talking about lay people ritual. So you can see that text and ritual is pretty crucial in contemporary Buddhism. And the other is just published this 2017, published a couple months ago. And this is Stephen Zhong's second book. He's working on a Daoist priest in the family, which is in the Shanxi province. So this is very few people working in the North China. A lot of people, they argue there is no Zhao ritual in the North China, but through the few words, we found out a lot of Zhao ritual in North China. And this is one of that. So he found out the family, and he spent a whole chapter to talking about the manuscript, how they memorize through the memory to recollect their manuscript. And he recorded all of the manuscript, and in the end, in index. So it's very fruitful, and he spent 20 years in the north to do the fieldwork. So it's pretty important books, I would say that for Daoist study. And this case is in Hebei, Guangzhong, Guangzhong Xian. So that's in the North China Zhao ritual. We found out that the Zhao ritual is the layout, and the altars layout is very different from South China, but the structure is similar. The whole ritual structure is similar. So according to the local gazetteers, we found out that in 1973, there have been a very huge Zhao ritual took place in that area. So it's called He Tian Da Jiao. In Jiangnan, we call 1937. 37, yeah. And in Hebei, we call He Tian Da Jiao. In Jiangnan, we call Luo Tian Da Jiao, right? Luo Tian is kind of the highest celestial heaven is called Da Luo Tian. So, but this here, and then there was $300 gathering to work on this Zhao ritual. But today they only have and $10 or $15 in this area, and their manuscripts were all destroyed during the Cultural Revolution. So in 1977, the ritual performance start to recover, and then they start to perform a ritual again. And in 1980s, these all Daoists, they gather in through their memory to recite all of the manuscript, and they write down all of the manuscript. They call established flag field, 立旗场. And they have a couple times, maybe 3 times of this, and gathering, and then recording, and then memorize, and then write down all of the manuscript. So before the 1980s, though, every small altar, they have their own manuscript, which is very different. But after 1980s, they shared in the similar manuscript because they kind of gathering and then share the same thing. So their ritual process and the ritual sequence is pretty similar. And this case is very interesting because they're painting, they're hand out the Daoist painting is, the way is very different from Jiangnan. The second case is in Zhejiang, Changnan, which is very close to WENZHOU. And here, the Daoists, during the 1949, after the communist government there, they try to find out the local officers. But the Daoist is the only one who can read and write. So the Daoists, most of the Daoists become local officers in that area. So during the Cultural Revolution, they have a less impact. So they can perform a ritual in the midnight or outside the village during the Cultural Revolution. So most of the manuscripts were preserved during that time. So most of these school or people, they call themselves as a Dulong Pai, Dulong school. They are actually, their ancestors actually come from Fujian. So they are kind of Fujian identity of the Daoists, but in Zhejiang province. So there was a very famous elite Daoist is called Liang Yuesheng in the 1980s and 70s and 80s. He has a whole house of a collection of manuscripts, and he started to categorize that and standardize that, and then his his collection and his set up a formula become very popular in that area. And also there are so many Daoists in that in Changnan area. They even have a whole street. It's called a supermarket of a Daoist 教室用品商业店, or it's called whole street. It's the store of a supermarket selling manuscript and all kind of Jiao ritual materials. And so also the young Daoists in that area, they start to digitalize their manuscript and to start to standardize their manuscript. And the other case is that in that area they have a Daoist called Ye. He was he's a very old Daoist now, and he hid all of his manuscript during the Cultural Revolution, and until the 1979 he started to take out his manuscript and start to categorize that, and in the 1990s, but he never start to perform, never have a chance to perform his ritual again. But a lot of this kind of people in Changnan area, they have a collection of a manuscript, but they don't perform a ritual anymore. So you can see that's okay. The third case is in Yunnan. So Yunnan, LIJIANG, LIJIANG, they belong to the Bai people, okay, the minority people, Baizhu. But in this area, they have Daoist tradition, Buddhist tradition, and also the Christian, and another tradition they call Achali Jiao. So from the name, we saw that it's esoteric Buddhism, but actually, if you see the ritual process, is based on the Daoist frameworks, but use a lot of Buddhist deities. So that is kind of Buddha-Daoist ritual traditions in this area. But Daoist ritual is still play a very crucial role in here. So from the 1980s, they start to recover Daoist ritual, and most of the manuscripts are preserved very well. And Daoist association, there's one small Daoist association since 1871, and they have passed down the 6th generation already. So today they have this small association. They have 340 members, and then try to apply for the Yunnan Daoist Association, the official association, but they reject all the time. But I don't know why, but they have been rejected, and so they really willing to participate in become one member of the Daoist Association, and they preserve all of kind of ritual manuscripts. Most of them we can see here. Most of them is very identified to the we have a Daoist, some of them we have Daoist canon, and some of them we can compare to the Hour of Providence. It's pretty similar structure, so it's definitely it's a Daoist ritual, and also they have preserved a lot of different scriptures. Those scriptures are all used to recite during the ritual. And the other case is in the Fujian, Shanghang, and LIANCHEN. So we interviewed a couple of Daoists there, and household Daoists. And first one is Daoist Yang. So he mentioned during the Cultural Revolution, they have burned out all of their manuscripts. The whole house of manuscripts have been destroyed, and they only remain very few, only few Jiao ritual manuscripts so far they have. So they only can perform that few rituals only. And the other Daoist Cao, he also mentioned that he have hard time to collect all of the manuscripts from different provinces, from Shiyuan and the Guangzhong area. So their manuscripts including ritual, divination, feng shui, and the medicines, a lot of Zhongyi manuscripts as well. So after, they have in this area, they have a more kind of formula kind of setting of how to train in the disciples. After 3 years of learning, you have to master all kind of manuscript, and the disciple will receive a set of manuscript and the ritual materials. The final one is in the GUEIZHOU. So the Guizhou, in this case, is very special because there is usually the people is called Nuo Xi, called Nuo ritual or Nuo performance in this area, Dejiang. And if you see the whole ritual sequence and the context and the layout of the altars and their paintings, you can see that's a Taoist ritual, based on the Taoist ritual structure. But in the between, they were set up all different kind of Nuo performance in there. So in this area, they have 200 of a Nuo master and 100 altars. And the one we interviewed is Master Zhang, and he was a founder of the Association of Dejiang Nuo Performance. And he was the president of the association. And he received the title of Non-Material Cultural Heritage in 2008. So as we can see that his manuscripts are very well preserved, including all different kind of ritual, exorcism, healing, medicine, divination, feng shui, blessing ritual, passing gate, thanks earth, and the Zhao ritual. So it's very complete. The collection is very complete and very preserved very well. But if you ask them, you will identify themselves as a Nuo master instead of a Daoism, because they can receive the non-material cultural heritage, and under this title, they can protect their rituals, their performance, and then their healing ritual. So okay, go to the conclusion. And the household Daoist priests remain the most salient site in which the southern Chinese participate in their daily religious life. So Daoist ritual underpinning of trans-regional Chinese networks. So by examining the relevant manuscript of the ritual, demonstrate that the rich evidence of the popular engagement with the household Daoism. So in other words, the Daoism is not, according to that, I will say that Daoist manuscript also show the shortcoming of the previous research, see Daoism as an individual religion. If we see that how the household Daoist they works, you will find out they actually provide frameworks for local people and local temple, for the local festival, local religious activities. They provide a framework or a service for these people. So it's not really a religion, but it's more like a framework, and they use different kind of sources, and through these frameworks that people can participate there in their daily religious activities. So Daoist manuscript, its malleabilities and adaptabilities in the revival of the local Daoist ritual, we can see that how people recollecting or sometimes invention or transform or borrowing, or sometimes they download all different kind of ritual to complete their collection. So this manuscript that provide an advanced tool for scholar to rewrite the history of Daoism. Also, we can draw a different picture of the household Daoist as the local groups that continue to innovate new ritual forms in response to the social conditions. So thank you for your attention. Thank you.